The Aussie NFL Fantasy Show would like to acknowledge the traditional land owners and the leaders past, present and emerging of Ngunnawal, Ngambri and Darawal countries where we are working from today. This always was, and always will be, Aboriginal land.
Especially without Hopkins, like they need someone to throw, and Hollywood hasn't exactly shown that he's a guaranteed one for them yet.
No, Greg Dortch is showing he's a guaranteed
Exactly.
one. Looking around going, can I get a program over here? Who's this Dortch guy?
What a Dortch. What a Dortch.
Yeah, it's fun to say. I'll give him that. In today's busy world, it's hard to have it all. Who has time to do all the analysis and decision making for your fantasy team? Probably not you, but we can help. Whether it's positively diagnosing players with fantasy leprosy, or helping you find the players who are on the verge of being fantasy legendary. There's only one name in all of fantasy you can really trust. Make an appointment with Dr GoodCall.
Every time this drops,
Not quite expecting that face every time.
I know it's been like 3 times already, okay, but
I like how
Just
the real
fits
photo.
perfectly into that doctor's coat. It's
Has
just
to
perfect.
Because I like how the real photo that we've cropped that from, and Tay, you know this photo really well, is, you know, you're standing at the edge of the coast on that beautiful, like, grassy knoll out of Wollongong with the sea behind you in a bow tie with your beautiful wife next to you about to attend a wedding. And I just think, what a great photo. Just look at that cheesy grin.
Fun fact, that's actually in Victoria. We're at a wedding, and it literally pissed down so hard that they had to move the whole wedding inside, even though they weren't really prepared for it.
You gotta be kidding.
It was dead set like a monsoon that day. It was insane.
oh, Soldier Field monsoon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
I
you
was,
would
I was,
never
I
know.
was doing slides like Justin Fields straight across my belly.
Mate, I would
Yeah.
pay good money to watch that.
I've done it before, don't worry.
Actually, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Is we're gonna get a Aussie NFL fantasy slip and slide day going on. That would be great.
A few beers into me, I'll do anything.
Be careful. I might take you up on it. How did you go last week, Doctor? We were identifying opportunities to cure some fantasy aids, but also to try and help people with their team. And you're diagnosing and offering prescriptions. Where do you want to start, mate?
Yeah, I'll start at quarterback. I was pretty happy, and obviously you guys at the Western Wankers were pretty happy that
We were.
you had this guy. I took Jared Goff. Obviously, I like to pick out the Commanders as a good defense to pick my quarterbacks against sometimes, because they were last against quarterback in 2021, and they've got the 24th ranked secondary coming into this year. So they're a defense that I think are just going to get torched by a lot of quarterbacks this year. I took him because he had a pretty decent week one as well, 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. But then he's just absolutely blasted through and had 4 touchdowns this week. It would have been nice for him to get a little bit more yards to sort of boost the fantasy, but you're not gonna say no to 4 touchdowns from a guy that you like streaming basically. So I was pretty stoked with that call, because it definitely would have helped a lot of people, as you know.
Yeah, well, it helped us for sure.
100%. And we'd sort of circled him as somebody who was a worthwhile pickup anyway. I mean, we did that thing where you have that week one and we didn't even put through a waiver for the quarterback after we lost Dak, because we were pretty confident we would find someone. We did get a few knocks on the door from people going, I'll sell you a quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we weren't going down that path.
Yeah, it's hard. You don't want to give up an asset when you can. Sometimes you can, even in 16-team leagues. Sometimes a guy like this pops up. So
Yeah.
he probably did the right thing by waiting. I took a running back in the same game. I would say he probably only just made it past the line that I would consider being a success for this. Obviously, we're looking at guys, probably that wouldn't be a guaranteed start in a 10-team league. So I took Antonio Gibson. He was up against the Lions. I really liked it because they were 31st against the running back position last year, and they don't really project to be any better this year. And he got a touchdown relatively, well, not early. It was in the first half, I believe, but he got the touchdown. But then he also ran for 2 a carry. So it was 14 for 28. So it was not the best on the ground in terms of efficiency, in terms of yards per carry, but he did get the touchdown. He was able to get a catch. It sort of took him over that 10-point mark. I would consider it enough of a success. I would be slightly disappointed if I had Gibson as my RB2, and he had that matchup because he's only got a couple more weeks before Brian Robinson comes back. So you probably wanted as much out of him as possible. But in the end, I think it was still enough of a success to say that it was a well-prescribed running back that's outside the top 20.
That touchdown definitely bailed him out. I think, otherwise you'd be struggling.
Absolutely. If it was just 14 for 28 and one catch, definitely would have been brutal.
A touchdown. Big deal.
I was very surprised by that yards per carry. I thought he would have had a lot better game than that. But in the end, you do what you do.
Yeah.
My next player caught AIDS in overtime, apparently. He decided he had dick fingers, and then, he took a massive hit, and then he ended up fumbling the ball and giving the Cardinals the game. I know it's probably a bit hard on him. It was a pretty tough situation he got put in. But, Hunter Renfrow, he actually all of a sudden was just getting looked at every play in that overtime. I think he had 3 catches in a row on the one play, on that one drive from Derek Carr. He hadn't had a huge game up until that. I think he was sitting on about 9 points and a half PPR. So full PPR, he actually had hit that 10-point mark. And then all of a sudden, the fumble gave away the game, and that brought him down 2 points as well. So, look, I probably wouldn't consider that as a win. I was probably expecting a little bit more out of him in that game, especially up against the Cardinals, sort of 29th against wide receiver in 2021. So, I won't consider that a success, but it was close enough. It wouldn't have completely destroyed you, put it that way. But I wouldn't be writing home about it.
Adams almost destroyed me in my fantasy eliminator league. God damn.
I was rattled by that. I thought Adams was just going to destroy them.
Yeah, same. Especially after week 1, where he had more receiving yards than the entire team he left in terms of just receiving.
Was it Mac Hollins? Who was the guy that was leading receiver for them in that game?
Yeah, I think it was Mac Hollins because he had a long catch.
Yeah. It was like, he had 60-odd yards and he was leading.
Former Eagle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No, I'll move on to tight end. So apparently I can prescribe tight end for other people and not myself. But I went with Zach Ertz up against the Raiders, 30th against tight end. Adam had him against me in Astro, and he started slow, as the entire Arizona offense did.
Yeah.
And then they just picked up momentum in that second half, and Zach Ertz just kept getting peppered with targets. Like I actually hoped he would when I made this call, and in half PPR, I think he ended up with 11 or 12 points. So he had a really, really good game at tight end. So I thought that was
15.5 PPR for him.
He's probably a guy that most people that have him will start now, but I think they would have gone into that game a little bit worried because he had barely anything in week 1, even though he jagged a touchdown in garbage time. So I thought he fit the criteria for this week, but I'd say now that most people that have him will probably start him.
Yeah, I think it shows that you should have confidence in him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially without Hopkins, like they need someone to throw, and Hollywood hasn't exactly shown that he's a guaranteed one for them yet.
No, Greg Dortch is showing he's a guaranteed
exactly.
one. Looking around going, can I get a program over here? Who's this Dortch guy?
What a Dortch. What a Dortch.
Yeah. It's fun to say. I'll give him that.
And I'll give myself a pat on the back, 2-0 for my fantasy AIDS player of the week. It's a funny one because if I go back to what I said about ETN in this game, I was happy with what happened because it was pretty much what I said, where I thought he might have a little bit more opportunity than he had in week 1, where he only had the 6 opportunities. He did actually end up 12 in this game.
Yeah.
So he doubled it. But my worry was that his looks weren't going to be as fruitful because he was against the Colts D-line. Instead of coming up against basically a terrible one in week 1 where he was able to run for basically 12 a carry.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, he was barely over 2 a carry. So it was a lot harder game for him, even with the opportunities he had. He went 3 for 33, I believe, in the passing game. So he definitely got that going for him. I wouldn't be really, really worried about him moving forward. I think he's only going to get a bit more. And he's basically a rookie because he obviously missed his entire rookie season. So I think they will get him more involved. They might even look at a Packers thing where they go Robinson and him together maybe and use Robinson more as the rusher and ETN as more as the pass catcher moving forward. So I wouldn't be, overly concerned. I think your ceiling you hoped for an ETN might not be there anymore. But again, you never know. You don't know what it looks like in one week, let alone 5 weeks. So, it could be something that changes a bit again. But it was more about that week specifically that I was off ETN more so than the full season outlook.
Yeah. Well, Mental, what do you think about ETN? We've got a share of him in a high stakes league.
Yeah,
How
ETN.
nervous are you?
Yeah, I've been nervous. We've benched him already in a 16-team league, so ouch.
That was smart though.
Our third
we
round pick is on our bench.
He's on our bench, and we put in Christian Kirk, who we traded for, who's actually a ton better. So the Jags, they're passing a lot to Kirk, not really much to ETN. Robinson getting all that work, as Talor said. I think ETN just is good enough for the pass catching. He could get you a decent 10 points on a good day. So I think I'm officially moving him into bust territory for us. I think at the moment he's in bust territory. We drafted pretty much three busts.
Yeah, I was gonna say we pretty much ones there.
Yeah, we drafted Dalvin and freaking Javonte before him, and I think we got like 3 busts or 2.5.
I think Javonte's been okay.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, Javonte's fine. It's just
he's just paying the rent.
Yeah, his shit.
And the Denver offense just looks nowhere near as good as a lot of people said before.
It's Nathaniel Hackett, 100%.
Oh my God.
I can go off with him.
For people who are old enough to know this one, when Nathaniel Hackett had an offensive coordinator job at the Bills, way back after Fred Jackson had moved to Seattle, the quote for him in the preseason 1 year was, "I'm going to give CJ Spiller the ball so much you're going to throw up." And every media outlet brought that out. Every week, CJ Spiller had like 9 touches. And I've never trusted the guy since then. Never. Even when he was OC with us, I don't know. He had Leonard Fournette. You don't have to overthink that. But I just don't trust the guy.
You mean the guy who waits till 4 seconds before the play clock's about to go off until he puts the call out?
And then
what to do? And then loses field goal position?
Yeah, and the Broncos fans have to count down the play clock for them to even get it off.
Unbelievable. And what's he shouting it out through rolled up newspaper? Because at 15 seconds to go, your headset cuts out. So what's he even doing? Has he got the he's got a Auslan lady on the sideline sending it in?
So every time Russ
throws it through pigeon.
Every time Russ throws an incomplete pass, the Denver Broncos fans, they just go incomplete. Wow. They just gotta do it. They're just going to do the chant just for us.
Spin off. He threw under 50% on the weekend. What is that? Oh,
yeah. Man. Yeah, against the Texans. Goddamn. Yeah, anyway.
Wow.
Dr.
All right.
GoodCall.
Dr. GoodCall definitely diagnosing correctly, saying, I think he got AIDS, puts him in for the scan, comes out, he's got AIDS. And no one more hurt in a 24-0 win than me to see ETN turn up with the fantasy AIDS. Should we move on to a sunnier subject, please?
Yeah.
I'm feeling sad. No, we're not going to move on to a sunnier subject. Taylor's going to leave me to wallow in misery.
So projecting some good players this week for Dr. GoodCall.
Oh, thank God.
All right. So again, there's a couple of guys that won't be obviously eligible for later in the starts of the week segment. They are sort of a little bit out of the range of that. This is more guys, again, that you probably got to think about in a 10-team league. This guy is actually one I picked up in Astro last week and played. So I'm going to take Derek Carr against the Titans because it's the Titans. And my God, I'm giving them back the Guinness World Record for our secondary. Like, they are just dog shit. Oh, my God. I'm bringing back dog shit from last week as well. I'll just say it again. So
some of these are timeless, mate. You don't have to apologize.
They were 24th against quarterback in 2021. I think they're going to be 50th this year. They are so bad. And I'll say that's enough with the Titans, right? I've got a grievance, and it's really to do with that Raiders game last week against the Cardinals. And I've had this issue with teams and the way they go about second halves for a while, right? I can't stand it when teams get a lead, like let's say 20-0, for instance. I'm not using anyone as an exact scapegoat. Raiders, they get up. Why do they go away from what got them the lead in the first place? Yeah. I understand the idea that if you run the ball, you run the clock, and even if you don't get the first down, at least you've run 3 minutes off the clock or whatever. But you just got your 20-0 lead by passing the ball. Derek Carr had over 200 yards in the first half by piercing that horrendous Arizona secondary. And they were like, how about we just let him back in the game by running the ball Josh Jacobs 100 times in the second half? They won't see it coming. And that's the worst part about the whole thing is Arizona knows they're going to do that. They know they're going to just start running the ball to try and run the clock out. What does my head in is, okay, in the fourth quarter, let's say it's still 20-0. I would understand it because the stats probably say you probably should just try and run the clock anyway. Why in the third quarter? Why in the third quarter are you not still trying to just win this game? Get it to 30-odd points, and just then you can start running the ball because you pretty much know you're not going to lose from there anyway. But why at 20-0 are you thinking we're just going to run the ball? Look, let's not do what actually helped us in the first half anymore. Like, it is brutal, obviously, as a fantasy owner, because you're looking at Derek Carr. This guy could have 4 touchdowns and 400 yards today if they just kept doing what they did in the first half. But at halftime, they were just like, let's just put the Q in the rack and let's hope they don't score 21 points in the second half. That's basically what they did, and it absolutely bit them in the ass. I really hope teams stop doing this. Yeah. It is ridiculous when they if they had ran the ball to get that 20-0 lead, I would have maybe understood it. So they can't stop us. They can't stop the run anyway, and it helps us with the clock management. So it's basically killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But you got there by throwing the ball. Why stop? You literally brought the Cardinals back into the game by running Josh Jacobs constantly in the second half and doing no passing plays. It was disgustingly bad, and I hope they look at that and do something different this week.
Oh, man, you got to weigh in on this.
Yeah, because did they forget who they traded their first and second round pick for? Did they remember who that guy is?
Yeah.
Do they remember? Is
Apparently
some
not.
dude named Devontae Adams? Apparently, he was Aaron Rodgers' best buddy.
I thought it was Brian Edwards.
Yeah. Did I forget who was his college quarterback? Oh my gosh! Like, I think Josh McDaniels, he's under the hot seat already. I'm gonna put him and Nathaniel Hackett under my hot seat already. There's too much heat on both of them. I'm gonna put it out there. They're on my hot seat until further notice.
Why even send Carr and Adams out there in the second half? Like, if you're just gonna run the ball every single play, you might as well be like, well, might as well put them in cotton wool. Like that, it's not gonna matter because Carr was just not used at all. Like, he didn't have to do anything in that second half, and it was a ridiculous game plan. I hate the teams just put the Q in the rack and basically give the other team a chance to come back. It's ridiculous.
I think Josh McDaniels, honestly, he's one of the most overrated offensive coordinators and offensive head coaches of all time. This dude, he literally piggybacks off Tom Brady's success. Everyone thinks he's a good coach because he had Tom Brady as quarterback. Same with Nathaniel Hackett. Everyone thinks he's a good coach because he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback for a couple of years, 1 MVPs. And then these teams go out and hire them and they're not proven because they don't look at the full history of these guys that have actually held back their offenses pretty much, don't have good decision-making skills. I think Josh McDaniels 100% deserves that most overrated offensive coach of all time labeled, in my opinion. Out of all the offensive coaches I know, I think he deserves that the most, to be honest.
I mean, we saw him with the Tebow experiment, right?
Yeah, that was shit. He was one and done as a coach. I think he shouldn't have been hired by the Raiders. I saw this as a bad hire from day one. It's already looking that way until he changes, until he actually uses the guys he actually has. I think he's got to be really, really under the microscope the next 5 weeks or something. That's what I'm putting
splashy. And they just want to be splashy because they're in this new market. I think that's all it is. And it's going to bite them in the butt. They're already in the most competitive division by consensus in the league. And now they're at a big disadvantage after 2 really uneven games.
Yeah. I just don't know what they're so afraid of in that second half. Just go out there and play the same way you did in the first half. And you cannot tell me that Arizona team keeps them to less than 10 points if they just play the exact same way they did in the first half. They would have 30 points. And yes, they would have more time for their own drives because obviously a lot of more passing means a lot more incompletions and stopping the clock. But like, what are you so afraid of? Like, I just don't understand why teams are so scared in the second half to throw the ball, even with a 20-point lead. Like, It just absolutely does my head in.
They made that awful defense look like world beaters. It was
Exactly.
the oddest
Because
thing.
they were so happy. They were just like, we can just defend Josh Jacobs the whole second half. We don't have to worry about Waller, Adams, or it's Hollins. Like, apparently, like, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unreal.
God
Anyway.
dang, that cornerback that covered Adams, he looks a lot better in his PFF grade this week.
Oh.
After a tough out against Mahomes last week.
Yeah.
The 2 or 3 cornerbacks there. Yeah, they'd be getting better PFF grades against Adams this week.
Which they shouldn't, because they played into their hands, the Raiders. It was absurd. And honestly, if they do the same to the Titans will be loving it too, because they cannot defend a pass to save their assholes, but they can defend a run. So if they want to give it to Josh Jacobs, go right ahead. You even saw they could not keep up with the Bills because the Bills love to pass. And every single time they handed off to Devin Singletary, the Titans blew that sigh of relief. I was just like, thank God, like we don't have to get torched by Diggs and Allen again here. But again, we'll wait and see if they've learned their lesson. But I mean, as a Titans fan, obviously, I would be happy for them to do that. But I do think they will look at that and pass even more. And I just think Derek Carr up against the Titans is a very, very good play this week for anyone that's making that decision. So, okay, I'll go to running back. Yep. It's a funny week this week. I mean, I even messaged you guys about looking at starts of the week. I thought it was a bit hard in some of the positions this week. Obviously, we put some new parameters and everything in. This guy actually does fit the criteria. It's someone Maddie looked at for week 1. I'm actually taking Damian Pierce, the rookie, up against the Bears. The Bears 18th against running back last year, and then defensive line is ranked 31st out of 32, which is not good. So Damian Pierce last week basically took over the entire running back room. It was a funny one. Obviously, they went to Burkhead in week 1 for a majority of the carries, and then he got all the passing work. And then basically they just turned it around within 1 week and said, we're going with the rookie. And that's what you want to see moving forward. Yeah. So I've got a lot more confidence in Pierce now than I probably did before the year started, because to me, I can't see why they would then go back again. Once you go to the rookie, to me, that your decision's made. So I think he gets all the carries over Burkhead now. Burkhead might still get some passing work, but I think it's going to be a lot less snaps than you saw in that week 1. Yep. And again, the Bears defense is not great. The Bears in general are not great. I think the Texans are going to run a lot. I honestly think the Bears are going to run a lot. I think this game is going to be over quickly because no one's going to pass, and you're going to see a lot of running back work. And I just think Pierce has the talent to really make a good game out of this, especially against a defense I'm not worried about.
Yeah, I agree with that, to be honest. I got the Texans winning this one against the Bears.
Ooh.
So I think the Texans, they're going to lean on Pierce a bit more. I'm really liking their offense so far. So eventually, sooner or later, I'm expecting a breakout game from Pierce. And this week looks like a good time. That's for sure.
I've been all over Damian Pierce in the preseason as well, and was lucky enough to get him in a couple of dynasty leagues. So I'm feeling really happy to see that swing. I imagine he might turn up in starts of the week in the late week episode. We'll see. No foreskin here. No extra epidermis lying around, but we'll see what happens there. Love the call. This is my problem with your segment here, Talor. I tend to agree with you a lot, and it makes me feel dirty.
That's why it's Dr GoodCall.
Circumcisions here, mate. No foreskin.
No foreskin. Go on.
Anyway, so
grip 'em, snip 'em.
Moving to wide receiver here. So I'm actually going to bring up the guy that was defended by the public defender last week. Obviously, again, not starts of the week relevant, but I'm going to take Allen Robinson against the Cardinals just because I want to just have a chat about sort of what happened last week. Straight away, they got him into the game. They got him an early touchdown, and I really do believe that when McVay came out and said that they need to get him more involved, they were telling the truth. They definitely need someone else apart from Kupp doing everything. Even though Kupp still felt like he did everything again, there actually was some help with Robinson. There was even a play where Robinson caught a touchdown. Then after the fact, they took it back because of an injury. Then Kupp went and got the touchdown the play after, which obviously hurt Robinson's numbers and anyone against Kupp. Damn you, Adam. But I do think Robinson in general, he's running enough routes. He even ran enough routes in week 1. Like, that was never the issue. It's just it didn't go to him. Again, you cannot base anything against this Bills defense. Like that Bills defense in week 1 that shut him down, they are going to shut everyone down. Like they are so damn impressive, that Bills team, on offense, on defense, on basically everything. We even saw the punter for the first time on Monday.
I didn't even know they had one.
And they forced a fumble of it. So that's more about the Titans being shit. But anyway, I digress. Allen Robinson is out there enough for a very, very good offense. And they're against the Cardinals, who I've talked about, who I believe Sean McVay might have watched the Raiders in the second half and gone, you know what, we should just keep passing on this shithouse defense. So I think Allen Robinson's going to get a lot of looks in this game. I think they're going to try and use this as a one to really, really pepper him. And I'm not trying to say Cup isn't going to be dominant either, but I think this is their opportunity to really use someone else here. And I think Allen Robinson's going to be the guy. And the Cardinals still have not proven to me they can stop anything, a wet paper bag, anything. So Robinson, to me, is a very good play this week against the Cardinals.
Oh, man, you'd love to hear that, right?
I
After defending him last week?
Yeah. He was a good defense. I did get that one correct, I reckon. We're going to be talking about that in a second.
Yeah,
but
we're going to need you to keep that streak alive, I think.
I'm really excited. Yeah, no foreshadowing there. Let's go. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what he can do, Robinson, because I do have him in a few leagues here and there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Robinson can do. He's projected a 12.25 on Sleeper, whereas his buddy Cooper Kupp, who I need to come in clutch in one of my leagues.
Projected for 112.5.
Yeah, it's only a casual 22 points. He's projected for 21.87.
A sneaky 21.
How about this for a wide receiver matchup in my IG Rising Stars League? Yeah, so I'm going up against another Aussie podcast, Touchdown Under. Shout out to them.
Cool.
They're just starting up again. So yeah, shout out to them. Going up against them in the IG Rising Stars, I've got Cup and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they've got Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, and DK, and Renfro. So I also got Burks, by the way. I got Burks. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting wide receiver.
You got to run out of yours.
Yeah, it's going to be like one of those wide receiver battles for the ages in fantasy this week. Yeah.
Wow.
I really got to take J.K. Dobbins out of my lineup.
We will be getting an update on how that goes for next week's shows.
Yeah.
That's mouthwatering. Talking of mouthwatering, I am desperate to find out what you're doing for tight end because you've been helping other people. You can't help yourself, but I need some advice.
I love helping other people. Now, look, this goes hand in hand, Matty. So I'm really testing the water here because I'm picking someone who I have. So which curse do I break? Do I break the Dr. GoodCall curse or do I break my own? Do I get a reception from a tight end this year? Let's wait and see what
irresistible force and the immovable object.
Exactly. What wins out, mate? We'll never know. Well, we will know after this week. But you're going to love this one, mate. It's your boy Evan Engram of Jaguars, who I've just picked up off waivers in Astro.
Oh God, I don't recommend this at all.
Of course you don't, but I do. I don't want to look at him. He's actually, for starters, he's had a catch in both games, so that's all I really need. I'm licking my lips.
How many drops though?
Doesn't bother me about drops as long as I get one. So that's an improvement.
Break the duck. Yeah.
He's up against the Chargers, who were last at defending the tight end position in 2021. So I do think it's not a bad matchup for him as well. And even if you're looking forward, he gets the Eagles, who were second last defending the tight end position last year, next week. So he's not a bad 2-week play. And I just think, in general, this Chargers team is very, very good in a lot of different positions. They're going to defend wide receivers very well. They've obviously got a pass rush now. They can actually defend the running back a bit better than they could last year. They're not so much a funnel defense. So I think a guy like Engram can kind of pop up in the middle there. And I think he's going to be very useful this week. Obviously, again, it's tight end. You're not after, 2 touchdowns and 100 yards or anything like
realistic.
that. You're just after a half decent game from a tight end, and I think Ingram's actually looked quite decent in this 2 game sample size for the Jaguars. So I'm interested in him. Obviously, it's probably more about the matchups he's getting so much than himself, but I just think he's an opportunity, and I think Trevor Lawrence may have to throw a lot in the second half of this game. They might be coming from behind. They may not. You never know. But either
Hmm.
way, I just think general Lawrence is
I
going to want
actually
to throw
got
in
a
this
take
game.
on that on Good Egg
Mm.
Gridiron about the Jags defense. I think they're going to have a good day, to be honest, against the Chargers because Herbert's injured. I don't
we
know.
don't know about Herbert.
Yeah, and Chase Daniel could be playing. So I'm actually going to take the Chargers offense scoring 20 or less points because I just don't know why. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's going to be a sort of low scoring game. And this is something where Trevor, he needs to prove himself against Herbert.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just going to be a good matchup between those two. And I think, yeah, Ingram, I'm not entirely sure. I think the ball is probably going to go to Kirk. They're going to move him
Oh, for
around
sure.
here and there. I know JC Jackson's on the other side, but Kirk is going to get most of it. James Robinson as well. That Chargers defense is hard to play against. Let me just say. So I didn't exactly pick the Jags to win. I still got the Chargers winning, but I think the Jags defense will have a good day. So they'll keep them in the game, and I think Trevor will have something. Maddie, what's going on over there?
Feeling very happy about this because
Yeah.
I think there's absolutely a world where even if you see Herbert go out there, he just takes one hit and then he's out.
He's all sorts.
Yeah.
I think you should start the Jags defense in tight end this week.
Thank you. That's all I needed was that last part.
There you go.
Look, if
So
I
they're
get
going to score a 20
if
burger.
I get 4 for 40, I'm good. I'll be happy with that. It'll be a lot better than recommending Cole Kmet.
I have absolutely no bias when I talk about the Jags as well, as you know.
Of course not.
Yeah, that's why I was never high on Cole Kmet. Everyone in the preseason, I would never choose him in any of my drafts because I just knew he was bust potential in that offense. So yeah, just want to say that out there that I recommended not to draft Cole Kmet. I don't know why Taylor and Maddie were a little bit higher on him.
I was what?
Yeah, Maddie.
Okay, Maddie was. It was just
definitely
Taylor. Yeah, it's definitely Taylor. There. Sorry, Maddie. Didn't mean to bring up. I'm pretty sure Taylor was pretty high on him. Like
I
as a late
I took
round.
him in, I want to say 4 to 5 weeks. He was always my late tight end pickup. And again, it is what it is. If I'd taken anyone else around there, I wouldn't be really in any better shape. It was one of those years.
That was the too late guy you hope turns up. Yeah, right. It's like there really hasn't been like
there really hasn't been a later guy that's really perked up. I mean, there's been better ones than 2 goose eggs, put it that way. And it turned out last week all I needed was anyone else that I would have won. But again, like I said, you just cannot trust anyone in a team that's passed 28 times in 2 games. And for reference, Joe Flacco in the same amount of games has thrown 102 times. He's thrown 102 times.
It's a recipe for success.
2 or 50 passes in that game against the Ravens. To impatient performance.
Flacco's throwing 50 a week at the moment. So maybe just go after Tyler Conklin if you just want a tight end. It's in an offense that actually passes the ball. But yeah, again, look, I'll just say Kmet actually was one that hoodwinked a lot of fantasy analysts. Like he was actually one that a lot of people were talking about, and honestly, it was mainly because of his finish to last year. He was I believe, was the most targeted tight end over the last 4 weeks last year. And it was because Fields actually decided to throw a bit. And then he's just come into this year and they're like, nah, we're just not going to pass ever. We are absolute dog shit. And obviously, it was hard to take week 1 for what it was because it was in a monsoon.
So everyone, what did we learn?
Gave him another chance. Everyone gave Mooney another chance. Everyone had Kmet was obviously rolling him out again. They're just a full-on sell now. Like if you have any Bears, I guess you could probably hold Mooney if you've got a deep bench and just see what happens. But
he's their deep shot. He's their only deep shot.
Only Bears player I'd take is Montgomery at the moment. He's the only one
obviously.
I keep.
You have to take the running game because that's all they do.
That's all they have.
Honestly, they're down by 20 odd and they're running the wall to try and come back against Green Bay, and it was actually working. But again, like the fact that they have no opportunity to even pass, even when they're down massive, shows you how bad that pass attack is. So, again, I would just steer clear of everyone but Montgomery and that team until further notice, until something changes, but I don't see it changing.
That was my strategy in preseason, so I'm totally vindicated at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Okay, I'll go fantasy aids, and as I mentioned, I've been 2-0 so far on these ones. I like to pick out someone who people aren't talking about as so much as that they know have aids. Like, I'm not going to talk about someone that's been a bust so far or something like that.
Okay.
I'm actually going to talk about people. Well, the first, I've actually brought two for this time. Let's see if I can go 4-0 out of 3 weeks. And the first guy to me is a sell high candidate. And I'm going to say that this week that I'm saying get off the Clyde train this week for the Chiefs. Up against the Colts' top 5 rushing defense, which I've already talked about before, and is already in a timeshare of a backfield. I would be looking to trade him off his good first 2 weeks. This Chiefs team, knowing the Colts' weaknesses, is defending the pass. So I believe there is just going to be an absurd amount of passes from Mahomes coming up. So I just don't see a world where, I mean, obviously, if they're up big in the second half, they probably will run the ball a little bit. But if they're up so big, we're just going to see what we saw against Arizona in week 1. It's probably going to be Pacheco coming in and taking the last 10 rushing attempts of the game, while they even use Clyde in a game that they're up massive. So if there's a neutral game script, I think it's just going to be passing from Mahomes, which doesn't really benefit Clyde. I know he's had a little bit of passing work.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on, man.
But I'm taking a shot on that. Like,
yeah,
if I'm worried about making this call and him getting a big score, it's probably going to be because he gets 2 rushing touchdowns close to the goal line. I'm not so much worried about this in this game. I think even if he gets a few catches, he's going to have more like a Travis Etienne line where he's got barely any rushing yards and he's 3 for 30 or something in the passing line. Well, I'm just talking about based off last week. That's pretty much what I projected last week, and that's what happened. So
the thing I like about you, Talor, is you'll stab me in the front. At least you stab me in the front.
I won't do it behind your back, mate. That's not
just like, you know what I'm going to do? Just
that's not where the fun stuff happens, mate. So, look, I'm just saying Clyde's a very good opportunity to sell higher, I think, right now, because I think there's a lot of people looking for running backs, and I would try and trade him maybe for a half-decent wide receiver or maybe a couple of different pieces, because I just don't think it's going to be this fruitful for him all year, and especially this week. So he's my first one. You guys can chat about that if you want
to. Yeah, I actually agree. I've seen a ton of people say sell high on Clyde, so I'd be doing the same. I don't have a share of him in any league, so I can't sell him, so I won't buy him at all.
Eternal optimist over here would be like, I'll buy him.
I wouldn't like what you needed to buy him for if you're buying, and I feel like there's an opportunity to sell if you've got him, and obviously it's very team dependent. Like, if he's your running back 2 and you have absolutely no depth, don't sell him. There's no point. It doesn't help your team.
So that's where I think I buy him, because, well, the person who's selling him knows reasonably that they're probably selling someone who their high watermark hasn't been high, and that they're selling them because they don't think you're going to maintain the high watermark. So as the buyer, you've actually got quite a bit of leverage.
Yeah. Mentality of sellers, though, that they go into it going, I'm selling high on this guy, so I need a Mozart, and then they can't understand why they're not getting it. So it's an interesting situation. All right, the second guy's one that I've always talked up. Like, well, it's a funny one, actually. There's been times I've talked him up, then the next year I actually talked him down, and then I was back on him again this year. I'm worried about Terry McLaurin this week in particular. They're utilising other receivers, and the Eagles were number 2 against wide receiver in 2021, and they just shut down Justin Jefferson. And honestly, if they were going to put Slay on someone in particular, I think it's still McLaurin. So I actually think this could be a way better day for Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel. I actually think this could be a game where they just take out McLaurin and then they make them go to the other 2. I'm not sold that's actually the best opportunity for the Eagles, because Terry McLaurin hasn't looked any better than the other 2, if anything, slightly worse. But I think that might be what they do in this game. And I'm very worried about McLaurin in general, because I don't think he's the clear-cut one in this team anymore.
Yeah, I actually disagree with the McLaurin and Dotson thing, because either way, you've got James Bradbury on the other side of the field, and he was allowing, I think, a 7.6 passer rating, and they have the best CB duo in the league. So I'm actually not sold. I'm not even sold on the freaking Eagles offense this season, because as in the Commanders. Sorry, my bad. I got Wentz in my freaking head, and I was thinking he's still an Eagle. But look, I think this is going to be a terrible day for the Commanders offense. I just don't think they can get it moving. unless they get these sort of quick screens, quick passes out.
And that's where
It's just
Samuel works.
yeah.
And I actually think Samuel will be the best out of the three. Dodson at least is a low draft capital guy, so you can sort of play him. You can work out the matchup or not. I think everyone that's got Mclaurin's probably playing him because of where they drafted him. So I'm saying that I'm most worried about him because he's the guy everyone will probably play. So I would actually be more confident in Samuel than Mclaurin this week because of the way that they use him. They use him in the running game, Samuel. They, like you said, they use him in screens. They get him the ball in different ways than they need to get it to Mclaurin. So I actually have a decent feeling that Samuel will lead the wide receiving core this week. And again, they're probably going to have to run the ball more than pass because the Eagles are, even though we saw them go well against Cook, but that was a weird game plan thing from the Vikings. They barely even gave Cook a chance. So I think they probably need to run the ball a bit more than they need to pass. And we all know what Wentz does in the second halves. If he's coming from behind, he can just throw it to the other team so easily. So that's actually why I picked up the Eagles defense in our show. So I think that could be a decent one.
Now I've got to weigh in with my Washington take because I don't know if you noticed, but
yeah,
it is an old jersey, so I've had to get out the sticky tape. And it's better than that. For a long time, I used to work for a supermarket chain in Australia called
Coles. Yeah, I remember
a Lavernaeus Coles jersey.
Lavernaeus, yes. I was
because I used to be number 80 as well, so it's a bit of both. It was my number, and it was where I worked. Blah blah blah. Now, mucho foreskin for a segment in starts of the week, but I've got some big opinions about where the ball's going to go for Washington, and I agree with Talor that it's going to be tough on the X and Y receivers, and it's going to have to be somewhere else. I'm not going to blow the foreskin now because that would require a different rating to what we get. You know, we'd have to go through a whole different thing with the Television Media Standards Bureau, and I'm not willing to do that. That's going to be for, I don't know, do we have an OnlyFans? Maybe we need to get an OnlyFans. But yeah, there's definitely, I've got some big opinions about Washington in week 3, which sadly means that I kind of agree with Talor, and I've got so few shares in Mclaurin, but the one place I've got him is in a league where I actually think I'm pretty good. So I'm nervous this week.
I've got Mclaurin in the content league, and I'm thinking about sitting him.
I was going to ask you, what does it take for you to sit Mclaurin? And then I thought, that's kind of a dumb question. Surely you can't sit him. But what does your team look like if you're sitting him? Like, who are your other starters?
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta go. All right, am I only taking a shot on someone just because he's got some good matchup, even though
I've got Garrett Wilson, and I'm just going to have a crack
in the depth chart? Well, yeah, that's the hard thing. Like, even though it doesn't look like a very good matchup for Mclaurin, and I'm projecting him to not have a great week, it's hard to just put in someone that you've just got off the waivers or something like that over him. So it's really team dependent. If you've always had a question mark over like a person that you wanted to maybe put over Mclaurin, this is probably the week. But if this is just a complete flyer that you never were thinking about playing him over Mclaurin, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's got a bad matchup, I'll play him now. I probably wouldn't. I would probably stick it out and just see what happens.
Oof. Yeah. All right. Well, fantasy aids unto thee. I don't have a better way to wrap that up.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want to project players to be bad. It's just more of a, having a look at matchups and stuff like that, and being able to try and talk to people about what players do have bad matchups, and maybe there might be an opportunity to sell high in a trade, like I mentioned of Clyde, or if you've got an opportunity to not play a guy like Mclaurin because you've got another decent piece. That's really what it's all about. I don't want the players to play like shit, but
I think that's the value of this segment, is it can say to you, this helps me with the decision in my team, or it helps me with someone who might be on the waivers who I could potentially take from the market, or it gives me either someone to trade away or a trade target. So I think that's the real value of the Dr. GoodCall segment, is that it clears up some of those things.
100%.
Yeah. Wow. I reckon the criminally underperforming, which sounds like Terry Mclaurin might be, the ultimate success would be if you had a fantasy aids player, then the next week have to go in front of the court of public opinion. We'll dial up this week's.
Yes, sir.
Get the public defender in here.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
My takeaway from that game is they played against the Seahawks. They're going to be flappy ass cheeks this year.
Aussie.
Well, we heard you were taking a Lamar Jackson style shit.
Yes, me and John, I like to do what I do best in this world, and that's where I do some of my best work.
NFL.
Oh, hang on, there's another quote. Daniel Jones is awful.
Fantasy.
Yeah, this is predate the man, John, the myth, the legend, 100%. Because I was only born in 2017. I'm only 5.